These days I'm going to edit out these intros, right? I don't know why people like the intros. Don't know why. I was going to talk about original, and this is about metaphysics, but it's also applicable to anything and examining it logically. I'm not interested in anybody's beliefs, and I'm definitely not interested in religions of any kind. Original Buddhism, and this video is not really about that, even though I'm going to be talking about it significantly, was not a religion at all. It was a metaphysics and liberation ontology based in wisdom. And I need to talk about what actual doctrine says versus what people preach, and talk about logical consistency. You know, either Buddhism, the original article, when we say Buddhism, when you actually say Buddhism, and of course the word Buddhism didn't even exist until a few hundred years ago. You know, the original article is 2,500 plus years ago. When you say Buddhism, everybody will have some idea in their head of either the Dalai Lama or, you know, some other people that I won't name. It's like, well, that's, you know, that's, I don't care what you like or believe in, but I mean, that's not the original article. That's not original at all. Let's talk about logical consistency. Virtually all of modern Buddhism, including Mahayanism, teaches that there is no soul, but that's not what doctrine actually teaches. It's and if you remove the soul, what you've done is you've actually created a type of morality, where you're good to your neighbor and you pet your dog and you lead a clean, wholesome life. And leading a clean, wholesome life is perfectly fine, but that's mere conduct. Conduct is only meant to be that which is conducive towards the efficacy of liberation or disobjectification. Either original Buddhism is complete, pure nonsense as taught by, these modern day teachers. They say they are, but they're actually not. I talk about some of the stuff that been said now for, in some cases, thousands of years, and it's completely illogical, it's nonsensical, and it's completely non-doctrinal. So original Buddhism is either originally pure nonsense, or it's hyperlogical, but misrepresented by the people that teach it. Who works for whose own good is a question that I would ask somebody. And that, of course, is a statement of mine. That's not doctrine, but, it's said at the outset to ask the question, well, who would work for whose own good? This notion of, nibbana being spiritual suicide or cosmic oblivion is completely ridiculous. By the way, if you want to know what all those yellow-robed guys in Southeast Asia and Ceylon teach, and this is their teachings, it's not actually found in Buddhist doctrine, i.e. the five Nikayas, Digha, Majjhima, Samyutta, Anguttara, and Khuddaka Nikaya, is they'll say, well, how does past life recollection work? And these are their words. They say it's like one candle that's about to go out. It instantaneously lights another. And, this is where we, get the transmigration of ignorance and other taints and whatnot. But that's not in doctrine. Here's one word, and it's the Pali word. I'm going to tell you what the translation is. It completely contradicts everything. And there are many, many hundreds of cases of stuff like this, but this is a good one. And they will admit in commentary that, in their own words, this word contradicts Theravada orthodoxy. It would be like, I'm trying to make an analogy for you, if there was something in the Bible, which of course there is, that would contradict, Catholicism fundamentally at the core, completely contradict it. And there is, and that's the reason Martin Luther, actually led an uprising against the church. But there are those parallels in original Buddhism. The word is Antarabhava, which literally means in between existence. In other words, after death, but before remanifestation. Literally this gap right here. So that and that alone, and there are many, many examples, I'll talk about a few here, contradicts 100%. And they admit that this word is in doctrine. Theravada, and also too Mahayana orthodoxy. In other words, what they believe and what they teach and preach. When I actually say I'm only interested in the original article, specifically the Pali word would be Buddha Sasana, or the doctrine of the Buddha specifically is meant. By the way, what Buddha called his teachings, and Buddha is not a person, I should say Gautama, because Buddha is Akim Kana, a non-person. It's a spiritual appellation, by the way. As he called it in Samyutta Nikaya 5.4, Brahmayana, or path to the absolute, i.e. the liberation ontology, which sets oneself within the absolute. And that, of course, is what Tathagata means. It literally means to arrive, having arrived at, past tense, that. That with a big capital T. Tat, agata. Agata is past tense, having arrived at. Literally means you're standing in the station of the absolute, or Brahman. As in Tattvamasi, that thou art. And in the phrase, and that's not part of Buddhism, but it's the same thing, Tattvamasi, that thou art. That is the capital T, meaning the absolute, or Brahman, the Godhead. So that's what Tathagata means. But anyway, he said his teachings were Brahmayana. But getting back to Antarabhava, the very word Antarabhava completely contradicts 100% of modern-day Buddhism, which is not actually Buddhism, because if we were to call it Buddhism, it's like, are we discussing Buddhism? It's like, yeah, we are. And I'm like, no, you're not. We're talking about what ABCXYZ teacher, is telling their disciples. It's like, yeah, it's Buddhism. Like, no, it's not. And I make a really good analogy for you here, and it's completely applicable to Buddhism. There's not a single Christian preacher on this earth, not one, not even one. They will, if they're really egotistical, they will flaunt it, but when confronted, they will never say that what they teach is either equal to or better than that of doctrine itself, i.e., the stuff found in the Bible. Not one. I mean, if someone were to utter such a thing, everybody in the crowd would gasp. Maybe not. It depends on how much they've been. Maybe their brain has been washed. They may not gasp, but anybody with a half a brain would certainly gasp. And the same is true of Buddhism. You cannot say that what you believe or tell other people is either equal or superior to that of doctrine. So we have to have a basis of, a reference. It's like, what's the reference? What's the axis mundi that we can say, teaches this or it doesn't teach this? It's not any of those teachers out there today or the past few hundred years or whatever. It's none of those. Because none of those people would ever, nor have they ever, nor would they dare ever say, what I teach you is better than that stuff you find in the teachings. Like, what? It doesn't. So Antarabhava completely contradicts 100% of current Buddhism. It does. It's not my opinion, it's a fact. And there are many examples of this. There's Samyutta Nikaya 3.196. Samyutta Nikaya 3.196. It says, Anatasara, what, pray tell, dear Lord, does the word anatta mean? Rupanata, Vedanata, Sankaranata, Vijnanata. Forms, feelings, perceptions, sensations, empirical consciousness are meant, not the soul. These things, by the way, anatta is never a standalone. The word for no soul, and there's only 5 occurrences of it in the Nikayas, is the word of a compound word, natata, meaning there is no soul. And that is actually a heresy. The Buddhists will actually say, well, the belief in the soul is also too a heresy, it's Sasadavada. Well, Sasadavada is never in reference to the soul. Sasadavada is the heresy that you believe that you are a karman, or agent within samsara. In other words, there's no escape from the round of becoming. There's only, building better this life or building better future life. Sasadavada literally means perpetual becoming. Sasadavada is no different than saying samsara, but that's getting slightly too deep or slightly off topic. But Maradama, Samyutta Nikaya 3.195, before 3.196, his disciple asked, Honorable One, Maradama, Maradama, the Prakriti or essence of Mara, or you can say the teachings of Mara. What does Maradama mean? In other words, the doctrine or that which is evil. Mara is the Pali word for, we can say the devil, but that which is foul, vile, most profane is Mara. And the answer, and there's no discrepancy, except in purposeful mistranslation by a certain individual, I'm not going to mention his name, that people read his translations. He actually says subject to. The answer to what is Maradama is Rupa Vedana Sana Sankara Vijnana, or Maradama. He translates Dhamma as subject to, which is completely impossible, completely impossible. You can't actually have the axis mundi of potential liberation, because these people don't admit to anything other than these people, meaning those people in Southeast Asia. They don't believe in anything other than avidya, primordial agnosis, and the five constituent. And they'll say they will admit to nirvana, but not to them. They will strictly outright say that nothing attains to nirvana. I mean, who works for whose own good? Once again, it's completely impossible, to believe in liberation without a liberant. Well, that's just completely illogical. I mean, if Buddhism actually taught that, then it should be outright rejected. But it doesn't teach that anywhere within Sutana or scripture. It's not found. And trust me, I have a digital search engine for the Romanized Pali. I've been looking for decades at everything over and over and over and over again within all the five Nikayas, the original pre-sectarian corpus of actual, original Buddhism. None of these things these people teach, especially the really, really important stuff, is actually found in doctrine, because I have had, over the decades, literally a lot of people, thousands, actually say to me, it's like, oh, Ken, I had no idea that actual Buddhism taught this stuff. I mean, when I looked at it, and they weren't looking at it, they were looking at what all these teachers, not really teachers, obfuscators actually, these people were saying it was. And it's like, well, that's ridiculous. It's nonsense. Of course I reject that, because it's incoherent, it's contradictory nonsense. And they're right. It is what these people were telling other people that it is. It's like a piece of gold, like no one's ever seen gold before, really? Okay? Piece of gold here. No one's seen gold before. And you have all these people that are surrounding it and blocking it. And it's like, this is what it is. It's this messed up piece of brown, It's like, well, that's not what gold is. Unless you spent an enormous amount of time, meaning years and years, decades technically, and were able to look at the original article. Now, I'm not original on this. Who has said exactly the same thing that I'm saying about original Buddhism? The co-founder of the Polytech Society, Caroline Augustus Foley Rees-Davis, the most prolific metaphysician who ever lived, who knew 27 languages, wrote dozens and dozens of books and hundreds of articles. That's Dr. Ananda Kitish Kumaraswamy, yes? The list goes on and on and on. George Grimm, who wrote the most brilliant non-doctrinal book on original Buddhism. It's called Doctrine of the Buddha by George Grimm, Grimm. So, by the way, if there were no liberant or no subject that is freed of samsara, then logically we would conclude, if we have a brain, that it's way better to suffer 1,000,000 billion lives in samsara in perpetuity than undergo cosmic oblivion. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Would you rather have cosmic oblivion or perpetual rebirth? You'd be suffering, it's like birth, old age, sickness, and death over and over and over and over, and it gets away. Well, I have the choice of cosmic oblivion, or I could ride the roller coaster of ups and downs, because that's what life is, a roller coaster. Like, well, between cosmic oblivion, which is what these people preach, which is nonsensical and completely absurd, I think I'll take suffering for all eternity. It'll have its ups and downs, but it'll be a cool ride. I mean, that's what anybody with a half a brain would choose. If there were no liberant, then what is the purpose? Who works for whose own good? Udana, passage number 81. Udana is a book of the Kudaka Nikaya, And it says, O followers, there is an unborn, an unmade, an unoriginated, and unformed. If there was not, there would be no way out for the born and the made. There was the only thing that is freed of the five kinds. Boy, that was where you really get people going. These people that believe in this cosmic oblivion, spiritual suicide stuff. I said, well, it's right here in doctrine over and over and over again that this word right here, the word chitta, is freed from, the five khandhas. What? There's something other than the psychophysical. It's like, yeah, it's right there in doctrine over and over and over. The only word that is referenced as to attaining the realm of immortality, amatya datya, is the chitta. Chitta is just the Pali word for nous. You could say spiritus sanctum. Like, what? I posted all this stuff on passages of translations. I give you the book and verse. You can look it up for yourself. That's why so many, and there literally been thousands over the decades, people's like, I had no idea original Buddhism was logical and hyper-rational and beautiful and simplex. I mean, when I looked at it, and I picked up the book by, Dhamma Master Bada Bing Bada Boom. You go to a bookstore like Barnes & Noble and go to the Buddhism section. It's like everything you open is like, oh, this is trash. It's like, oh, if you have a brain anyway, that is. And if you don't, you're like, wow, this is great. It's nonsensical. It's gibberish. It's contradictory. It's completely unrepresentative of the original article. Like, what's freed of the five khandhas? Well, in doctrine, there is something freed of the five khandhas. There's some passages I gave the other day. I don't think I want to roll back to some of the passages. Here they are. Steadfast in the soul means steadfast in one's true nature. We get back to nirvana. The definition of nirvana in doctrine is very, very simple. None of these people that teach Buddhism ever talk about this. They don't read doctrine themselves. Suvimutta chittasanabhanam. The thoroughly liberated chitta or spirit or nous means nirvana. Bhavanirodhanabhanam. Yeah, the subjugation of becoming. Well, the subjugation of what by who? These people quite humorously believe that, if you were to believe that nonsense that they're telling people to believe, that there's a turd that polishes itself, and, that's nirvana or something, like some sort of superficial morality nonsense. And it's not that at all. It's a liberation ontology based in wisdom, specifically the neti-neti or apophaticism, the disobjectification from the psychophysical. It is an identification phenomenology of embodiment due to primordial agnosis. One identifies with that which they see in the mirror, the psychophysical constituents which are not the self. The most repeated passage in ancient Pali is Isaka namisata. The body is not the soul. Can't say my soul because that my soul implies something has a soul, meaning possession, and that of course is illogical. I'm telling you flat out, as a genuine, consummate expert on original Buddhism, and if I'm anything on this earth, I am that. I am a consummate expert on the topic of original Buddhism. Oh, girlfriend, yes. Right at the top of the pyramid, top. Yes. Think that's egotistical? Don't care, it's still true. That Buddhism does not teach the stuff that you find in those strange little books at your Barnes & Noble bookstore. People came to me. They come to me and they email me and they ask me, this doesn't seem right. I mean, this is illogical. It's like spiritual suicide. I mean, did Buddhism really teach us? Like, no, there's no such passage like that in doctrine. And I'm not avoiding any of those passages. Like, well, I don't agree with that. You have to accept it for what it is. Borrowing a time machine, that is it. And that is pre-sectarian. It's not like the Bible, which is the King James Version. I mean, I don't know if you know the date of King James, but I mean, the Bible is the King James Version. There's all sorts of stuff that was left out, stuff that was put in. In that case, having a time machine would be good, but the Nikayas, i.e. original Buddhism, was established well before any of the latter-day sects came along. Well before, thank goodness. Whew, thank goodness. Ask a so-called Buddhist, about Antattva. First, you're going to have to translate it for him. It's like in between. It says, what Buddhism teach about, past life recollections. Well, when one candle goes out, it lights another instantaneously. That's what's going on there. They could never explain Antattva. In other words, after someone dies, before the essence of that being remanifests into another physical body. This in between right here, Antattva. Oh my God, that one word, and there are many, many, many such words like that, throws all of Buddhism all a kilter. Like what? Like what? It makes perfect sense. I mean, if you have something that is ab extra to the psychophysical, then you have Antattva and the explanation for it. But if you're a materialist and you're teaching this cosmic oblivion stuff, don't want to talk about that, don't want to consider it. No, I don't want to hear about that. La 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 la. Once again, ending this video. Either Buddhism, the original article, is complete, pure, illogical, self-contradictory nonsense, which it's not. Or it's hyperlogical, accurate, sensible, but it's being completely misrepresented, by all these so-called teachers out there, teaching, gobbledygook, bada bing, bada boom, Guru Master so-and-so says, Buddhism teaches, I appreciate your insight, but that's not what it actually teaches. What these are your ruminations, your speculations, your musings, your blathering, your lip flapping about something that you know nothing about. If I were a smart person, and boy God, I am smart, I would say, instead of listening to this guy, and this guy wants money from you, come listen to my lecture on Buddhism. So, instead of listening to that guy, what I'm going to do is nobody has time to learn ancient Pali. It just takes forever. What I'm going to do is I'm going to study the original stuff. You should probably go to the source. Anybody with a brain would say, I'm going to go to the source. I'm really interested in what it actually said, not what these guys say it says. Why would I want to listen to a secondary source? That would be like if you want to see a movie, instead of going to the movie theaters, I'm going to have Joe go watch the movie, and then he's going to come home and he's going to tell me and instead of seeing the movie, I'm going to listen to Joe tell me about the movie. Well, who wants to do that? Does anybody? Why didn't you want to go see the original article? To me, that shocks the heck out of me. People like, I don't care about that original stuff. It's like, you don't really care about it. Yeah, sure I care about it. Well, if you care about it, then why aren't you interested in the original? Why? It's nonsensical. It's illogical. It's irrational. Well, Guru Master Bada Bing told me this, and it seems, he seemed like a nice guy. He only charged me $200 for his lecture. See, this is the stuff I've been dealing with for decades. There's a downside to having a very sharp mind on your shoulders. It's like Mr. Magoo. Mr. Magoo was blind. Everything he saw was cool, even if it was horrible and dangerous. Hey, it's pretty cool. It's like you're blind, Guy might looking at something horrible and he thinks it's an ice cream cone. He can't see anything. He's blind. People are blind. Spiritually blind. They're actually too metaphysically blind. The reason why people are metaphysically blind, they can't discern logic from illogic and nonsense is they were not taught. Never ever taught any of that stuff. They have no idea how to discern stuff, which I find really shocking and appalling, and it shocks me to death. I see it all the time, but anyway, sorry I talked too long in this video. Thank you, and good night.